This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends talking nerdy.
This is the podcast making, public transit taking, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun, Tim the Nerd, welcoming you to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy, part of the Deluxe Edition Network. Head to deluxeeditionnetwork.com to find out about all of the lovely shows on the Den. And seated next to me, we have the most electrifying professor in podcasting today, Professor Aubrey. How you doing?
I'm good, Tim. I'm really good. How are you doing?
I am doing good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How are things going with the dogs?
It is going very well. The dogs are great to work with. The thing that is constantly evolving is finding new ways to keep the temperature kind of down. Because dogs being dogs, a lot of times, like, they'll get into arguments, first of all, based off of play.
Right.
And, that's you got to be careful of that. But, which makes me think of today, there was this dog that was, like, really anxious, wanted to go, barking a lot. But on occasion, it would latch onto another dog and start playing. Which you definitely wanted to encourage. And the first moment I saw this happen, these two dogs started playing. This third dog comes running in. If it could have a smile on its face, it'd be the biggest grin. It's just like, come here! And immediately mounted one of the dogs. I'm ready for some fucking woohoo! And I had to pull that poor guy away.
Oh my goodness.
But I also, too, I need to say, when it comes to mounting, do not get the impression that it is only male dogs that do that. It is dominant thing. And that's, today I learned a type of deal, but, I do want to acknowledge that if I say he, I don't necessarily mean he for each and every one.
Gotcha.
I should say they.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had to acknowledge that because I know I said that before. Anyway, that just running in, almost doing like a slide on its back two paws and wild look in its eye, tongue wagging out, come here.
That's so great.
Yeah, it's great to see that.
Yeah, what a fun thing to watch.
Yeah, but I know one thing that is not fun to watch, and that is spam text messages.
Oh my God. Yes. I have been getting so many spam text messages lately, and they're so transparent. I don't know how anyone would fall for them, because it's always like, Aubrey Baldwin spelled wrong. Order number 6472. Mr. Baldwin. This is, some bullshit, right? Trying to sell me something.
I get plenty of them myself, probably not as much as you, because generally what happens, the reason you get those is that your personal information is not as personal as you think, people. And the dark web being what it is out there, and also there are legal ways people can also obtain this type of information. Information is retrieved and obtained about personal people's phone numbers, and if they have access to other bits of information about you as well, then they may target you more than they would other people, because the whole point of this scheme is to make money.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it just seems really not sophisticated, these text message scams.
Think about it, though. There was one time, if I recall correctly, that I saw you accidentally hit on one of those because you did have a package that was coming and you thought, it was close enough. You questioned it. You did question it, but you did open it. And what they are hoping for is people that don't even go as far as you did. And the people that just see it, I have a package, tap. Mm-hmm. And that's what they want because, from there, more malicious stuff could potentially occur,
Yes, yeah, it's like warfare. But, it also got me thinking about sophisticated scams. And we recently watched a documentary about very sophisticated scams where people individually interact with and get the other person to love them and to trust them through conversation on the internet. Then they mention that they're an investor and then just talk about normal stuff and wait until that person asks them what kind of investments. And then it goes into a whole conversation about it. And ultimately you're trying to get the person to want to invest. Once they do that, there's this very sophisticated website that looks just like a NASDAQ investment site, and it shows people's winnings and losses and how much they have now, and people thought they were making millions of dollars when in fact every bit of money they invested was stolen.
What you're referring to is an episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, where he went into depth on what is colloquially known. Why am I going to use a word I can't pronounce? Anyway, known as pig butchering. And to your point, you explained it quite well. Just they use stuff like dating apps to be able to connect with people. And
like Facebook. It's like those people that you get Facebook matches or they want to be your friend and you've never heard of them or seen them and they have 2 pictures and you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. But anyway, it's really scary.
It is because, especially with what you described, the fact that they're getting so sophisticated enough to know ways to fool even the most steadfast person. Because, people that were interviewed, talked about, having reluctance about, investing anything with somebody they had not met in person. But the person on the other side, the scammer, ended up saying, oh no, you're not giving the money to me. To your point, you're investing it in this app. This is what I saw. And then from there, the app was complete fiction. Yet, was available on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store.
Right, because that's not a regulated marketplace.
Yeah, that's why Apple has a closed door environment when it comes to all of their stuff, whether it's their software or their hardware. And a situation like this show that they should not have that freedom. Apple should not have that freedom because they're allowing sites like that to, go free for download on their app store.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the other side of it is, who are these people doing the scamming? And what John Oliver uncovered was that it's a lot of people who are being trafficked and basically become slaves in compounds where everybody is just trying to scam people all day. And they have like quotas and they have to work, ridiculous hours and they're, can't leave. They're kidnapped and held against their will and made to do this. And if they didn't do it, they would be beaten or worse things might happen.
Law enforcement was bought off.
So even if they managed to call the police actually came and told on them and got them punished.
Yeah, just scary stuff out there. I think the summary is be very, very, very careful about what type of interactions you have with people online. It's like you don't want to totally discourage people from reaching out to other human beings because there are very legitimate, good, positive things that you can do online that you can connect with other people. But as we heard in Last Week Tonight, things are getting so sophisticated that you're having scammers even take advantage of stuff like that.
And doing such a good job that people had lost $3 million.
Yeah, there was a guy that they talked about in there who ran a bank who essentially used all the bank's money.
Whoa.
And then committed suicide before going to jail.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Whoa.
You know, that kind of stuff just really scares me because those are just normal people who somehow lose it.
Yeah. If something sounds too good to be true, folks, it is.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful. And it's another reason too that I'm appreciating my declining use of stuff like social media. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, for show purposes, yeah, I keep a presence, but it is nowhere near what it used to be.
Sure.
And it's like, thankfully, I've not had to endure any sort of scams like this at all, and hopefully I never do. But I've also seen enough of what interactions with other human beings that you have not met in person can do that just makes it to where I don't want to really put that much effort into it anymore. It seems like it's going to be more fulfilling, I guess, like, you know, take the show, for instance, show promotion. It will be more fulfilling to be able to, like, give a business card to one person and then to find out later they actually listened.
Right.
Than it would be to, you know, like on Twitter, we had 3,000 followers, but was it an active base? By no means.
Right. Yeah, they were just bots.
Not necessarily bots. I mean, with the podcast community, we will, the indie podcast will support each other in terms of like following each other's shows.
Oh, okay.
You know, which is how, you know, we got connected with the Deluxe Edition Network. How we met our friends at P&W Haunts and Homicides. Monster Talk. Dr. Karen Stahls knew.
Yeah.
You know, it's those. That's the very positives for me of what social media has to offer, but just, you know, the negatives that are out there, because you do have, like, you know, on occasion we've had people leave comments online about, you know, something they didn't like about the show, and like, why do I care? I really don't care. you know, which is why I've never been one to really, you know, pimp out, leave us a review, because most people are not going to give an honest critique. They're just going to be like family members or friends and be like, this is the greatest show in the world, or somebody that just didn't care for it and wants to make themselves look like more of an ass by writing a negative review for a show that doesn't have many listeners anyway, and they're going to do a 1-star review. Great for you, you know?
Yeah. Has that happened?
On Spotify, yeah.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, but again, I take no credence in stuff like that, but that's, yeah, I'm a cynical bastard, and even the most cynical people can be fooled with the right person. You can never rest easy, I guess, because there are tons of people that would love to screw you over.
Yep.
All right, speaking of screw over, we saw a great documentary.
Yeah, we did.
Yes, and we'll get to the screw over point. There is, it's not just a random thing I threw out there, but Paramount Plus actually is a great source of some great music documentaries that we've seen, either together or individually. On my part, like they've had a documentary on the making of the Thriller album. They had a great documentary that we saw that talked about the history of gospel music in the 30s and 40s and how that ended up, those musicians ended up essentially inspiring the musicians who created rock and roll. But one that really, really was well done was Willie Nelson and Family. A 4-part, each of the 4 parts about an hour long. So I'm sure just due to the amount of content they would have to cover, it would not be the sort of documentary you could put like in a movie theater or something like that. But breaking it up like that tells a great story about one of the greatest musicians of the 20th century. Let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And that documentary just reconfirmed it again and again by looking at the songs that he's written. I mean, he's written some of the best songs that exist.
That speak to the human soul. He's also been involved in a lot of just interesting stuff. Like, you learn in the documentary, I didn't even know this, and I'm a huge Blues Brothers fan. The first time John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd got together as the Blues Brothers, Willie Nelson and his band were the backing members. Because, once rehearsal on Saturday Night Live was done, at that time, Dan Aykroyd rented out a bar and made it like a private club. And after the show on Saturday nights, they would, the cast and crew and the guests would go to that club, and there would be music. It was a private club, so like there was no money exchanging hands. So it's not like the cops were necessarily going to like bust him or something like that. But yeah, Willie Nelson was a musical guest on a show one time. Went to the club afterwards to party and have fun, and he and the band were the first Blues Brothers band.
Wow. I don't remember that from the documentary, but that's not surprising. I'm sure I went to sleep during them.
That's the beauty of this documentary. There are some documentaries that you can watch over and over again. For me, for some reason, music documentaries are ones that I can watch again. Like the classic album documentaries that you can find on like Pluto TV now. I mean, they're easy to find for free, but I love those type of just documentaries that just talk about the creation of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're going to get to the screwed over comment.
Okay.
We're talking about when Willie Nelson was raided by the IRS.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, one thing that was interesting is, like, he made it a point that, he could have declared bankruptcy and a lot of the tax stuff would have just gone away. He still may have lost some of his possessions, but I just found it a little ridiculous that the IRS went to the extent that they did to try and punish him when he had the resources to be able to more than pay them the $30 million, I guess, that he owed them in back taxes. Willie put out a heartfelt plea for it because he put out, basically part of the settlement was he created a special double album that he promoted as much as he could, and they had TV commercials and everything, and I remember them as a kid, where like his friends would come on and be like, Willie's in the time of need, buy this album to save Willie and give Willie some money, and it was called the IRS tapes.
Yeah, no, and they were great. Who'll buy my memory? Something like that.
Yeah, and it's like Willie, to his credit, said that he had no intention of going bankrupt, that he had every intention of paying it off, and with the amount of celebrity that he had, like the IRS immediately like raiding his instruments and taking all of his instruments away and then saying, you owe us more money. Why not find we're talking just an IRS thing here. Willie was not a drug dealer. They could have made some sort of an arrangement to where Willie could have paid that off without them going to the extent they did.
Sure. They wanted people to understand they were serious.
I guess. And I mean,
the thing that I thought sucked so bad about that was that Willie had been paying someone to take care of his affairs, like this, paying his taxes, and they didn't do it, and they took all the money that he gave them to do those things with and absconded with it.
Yeah, because you get to be an artist of any sort of popularity. You're not going to have time to do an expenditure or a budget list for everything you have to do. Especially if you have nationwide or worldwide touring involved. You're going to put it in the hands of an accountant, and if they want to mess with you, you got unfortunately, you're still going to have to deal with the consequences. And it's like, I am not proclaiming that he shouldn't have had some sort of punishment. You don't pay your taxes, I get it. But to me, it's like, if you have the resources to be able to pay it off in a rather reasonably quick amount of time, why not do that? That's the lesser of two evils, I guess. You're still getting the punishment, but you're working with the person to make that payment, I guess. But again, they wanted it to be on TV. IRS, big and bad, we strong. Yeah, because, again, we're talking taxes here. I'm not, if Willie, ran over somebody and drove away, then, deal with the full extent of the law. But when it comes to something like taxes, especially if you have the ability to pay it off relatively quickly, come on. That is the reasonable thing to do.
Absolutely. And I think if he wasn't a celebrity, that's what would have happened.
Yeah. Fucking government, man.
I don't know. I mean, I think that's one of the big problems with being famous and rich is that it's hard to know whether people are taking advantage of you or not.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
you're not...
like stealing from you.
In a situation like that, yeah. I mean, by the time you find out, by the time you were able to get your own independent investigators to check a particular issue, by the time you find out that you've been screwed, it's probably going to be much bigger than you think. And
Well, I mean, maybe they hire two firms and they get the same type of information from each, so they can cross-reference. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, if I get proprietary information from Westlaw and I get proprietary information from Lexus, does that proprietary information, it's the same. The only difference is how I access it. So I'm saying maybe the rich people hire two different firms to give them economic forecasts or to file their taxes so that like everything is happening in duplicate.
I mean, if you make enough money, yeah. I mean, Jeff Bezos could pull that off. I would like to think too, someone making a very low 7 figures or high 6 would be able to pull that off as well, reasonably so. But accountants can be expensive, especially for bigger projects like being an accountant for a corporation. And I'm sure it's not just one guy
or a band that does global tours, as you were saying.
Exactly. But definitely check out that documentary. It really well done from first to last, and kind of shows not only how good of a musician Willie Nelson is, but how ingrained he is in the entirety of popular music in America in the 20th century. I mean, he has his roots in everything. And I think, if anything, this documentary more than shows just why his entry into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was deserved.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Any other thoughts on Willie?
No, just love him. Love you, Willie.
Yeah, it's unfortunate he won't take his outlaw country tour here to Portland, because I guess Bob Dylan is making appearances on it too.
Oh, really?
Robert Plant and Alison Krauss.
Nice.
Yeah. But, unfortunately, not friends of the show, Jomo and the Possum Posse.
No.
Yeah. But
I'm sure they would have loved that.
Yes, I'm sure they would have too. But good news, though, they're coming out with a new album.
Oh, great.
Yes, coming out May 19th.
But that is just a few days after my birthday. I'm excited to hear they did release a single, I think, from the album. And we watched the video and listened to the song. And it was really great. And the video was really wonderful because it took actual footage from silent movie.
Yeah, Harold Lloyd film. I forgot which film specifically, but he, along with Buster Keaton, were two of the early pioneers of stunt work as well as comedy, kind of mixing in. And it's Jomo and the Possum Posse, when they make their music videos, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be public domain type of footage. Mm-hmm. But the name of the album is called Yesterday's Coffee. Jomo and the Possum Posse. This first single out is called Train of Thought.
Nice.
Yes. So definitely check that out.
Right, and the movie is about a train. There's a train track and a train goes back and forth, and that all makes sense now.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're wordsmiths.
And then that Yesterday's Coffee, immediately what I thought was Yesterday's Wine, because we were just talking about Willie. It could be. It could be.
I mean, it's yeah. I was going to say initially that it was the design of the album cover kind of looks like the Jolene thing somewhat. It gives me the images of the Dolly Parton album cover with Jolene.
Really?
Yeah, but not quite. I don't know. I don't know. What am I thinking? I'm not. Yeah.
I don't know.
Jomo and the Possum Posse, everybody.
Anyway, check them out.
Yeah, May 10th.
I thought you said May 19th or 17th.
No, May 10th is when the album drops. Yesterday's Coffee.
Yesterday's Coffee, May 10th.
All right.
Gotcha.
Now, while you're yawning, how about we send it to one of our friends at the Deluxe Edition Network?
Oh, well, that's sure to pep me up.
All right, sit back, relax, and hear this message.
This is Take on the World with Johnny and Mike. And, people always ask me, hey, you got a podcast? What's it about?
I don't know. You ever want to cut your fingers off or learn about a sharp knife?
We could tell you that.
How about murder mysteries or hauntings or any kind of fringe subject?
Anything you can think of. We take on everything because we take on the world.
Now you go take on the world.
Hey, Tim, before we get to our main event, would you like a cup of coffee?
Always. I live on that stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah. How do I get through the day otherwise? Caffeine, man.
Caffeine is the way.
Yeah.
I agree. You've got to have caffeine in order to make it through the day. That is for sure. So I have this new coffee I would love for you to try because I absolutely adore it. And I have really good tasting coffee.
You most definitely do, folks.
Yeah, so I have this new coffee from Coffee Brothers Coffee Bros. And they are a small roaster in New York City that's run by two brothers, which is why they call themselves Coffee Bro.
Imagine that.
I know, right? Yeah. And they have this really great website that sells coffee that they make there in New York City, or they roast there. Sorry, they don't make it there. Obviously, they grow it in places where coffee grows.
Yeah, I don't think the South Bronx is a good place for coffee.
No.
In terms of growing coffee.
No, I think you have to be much closer to the equator.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, here, give it a try. What do you think?
No. So good, folks. So good. This is something I recommend we all try.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's an award-winning coffee, and it's got really great blends, espresso roasts, and single origin coffees, which are all small batch roasted, you guys, in New York City. And we're in Portland, as you know, the home of amazing coffee. But for my coffee at home, I'm going to go for Coffee Bros.
And a reason I would go to Coffee Bros myself is because I love a good discount.
Oh my God. Yes, you do, Mr. Frugal.
Yes, if you go to their website, which you can go to our show description, and it will have a link there that will take you directly to their site, coffeebros.com. If you purchase some coffee from their website, and when it prompts you to put in the promo code, you put in FTN10, you're going to save 10% off of your order.
Wow, that's awesome.
It definitely is.
I hope everybody takes advantage of this wonderful opportunity to get 10% off this fabulous coffee.
I hope so too. Again, people, coffeebros.com. You can find a link in our show description, and at checkout, in the promo code area, put in FTN10. Let's drink some coffee, baby.
Okay.
As we sit here getting serenaded outside by the guy who is the mutant offspring of George Jones and Merle Haggard in a drunken love escapade in some seedy Nashville motel room that resulted in this creature that has just zero talent but thinks they have a lot more, it makes me think about the importance of music and songs and how they can make something as great as a film, as a TV show, as a Broadway play, or anything like that, how it can accentuate it, make it better, and just soundtracks are amazing.
Soundtracks are good, Tim. I really like them. Do you like scores or just soundtracks of like pop songs?
It depends. Generally, scores, not so much. It would have to be something really special, but I do have a couple of scores on my list. For me, the ones that have ended up speaking to me the most have essentially kind of been like, for lack of a better thing, kind of like our playlist episodes, the hodgepodge of assorted stuff that gets put together to make a soundtrack, and yet it still works. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what always floats my boat. Let's put it that way.
It really does. I mean, I think that soundtracks that we're going to talk about tonight, I'll do that.
Yeah, so what we wanted to do, if you have not already surmised, we are going to do what we call around here the Nerdy Five, and we're going to talk about our 5 favorite soundtrack albums. Now, soundtrack, as we defined it, is just an album that is put out for some other form of entertainment. Really could be anything, could be broad. We didn't want to limit ourselves to just movies or just TV shows or anything like that.
Yeah, so it's basically anything that's musical.
Yes, because again, doesn't matter the form of entertainment that we're talking about here. When you get that good soundtrack, like I think back in the 90s when Twin Peaks hit it big, I think one of the reasons Twin Peaks hit it big was it had an interesting soundtrack.
It had a really great soundtrack.
Yeah.
Super great.
Yeah, so what we will do is go through our choices here, bounce back and forth, explain why we chose the ones that we did, and then just have a chat.
Sounds great.
All right. How about you start us off?
All right, I will this time.
Okay.
So my number 1 is a movie that I have watched probably 100 times. It's the soundtrack for that movie, which was also a Broadway show, but it was a full-fledged movie, like not a reenactment of a Broadway show. It was a full-fledged movie. Anyway, I watched it a lot. It is Hair.
With Treat Williams in it, right?
I believe so. Yeah, the movie. Yeah, which is do you know the story?
No, I haven't seen the movie or the play.
Oh wow!
I'm assuming it's about like hippies and.
It is about hippies and the Vietnam War and people getting drafted.
Isn't that the
drugs.
Age of Aquarius song in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's probably the most famous song from it.
Yeah, the reason I cringe at that was it the Fifth Dimension that did that. It was the Fifth Dimension cover of the song "The Age of Aquarius." Just sounded too 60s pop for my taste. Let's put it that way.
No.
Yeah, because they were, in that track, they were kind of using the old thing that Phil Spector stole, but that wall of sound. And that just sounds so aged. It doesn't, yeah. I mean, it may have been a big thing in the 60s, but it just reeks of oldness.
It smells like an old book.
Not even that. An old book has a nice smell, a welcoming smell, kind of like, a well-loved home. But just something, it's just sometimes entertainment, for whatever reason, entertainment choices that work in one era don't always work in another. I mean, and people get that, people understand that, but just sometimes some songs don't work for me.
Yeah. Well, some songs don't work for me either.
Yeah.
I bet there are some on your list that I'll be like, huh.
But why, you said you've seen this movie a number of times. What draws you to this movie?
Really the music and the dancing. There's lots of really great dancing in the movie. And there are just some really great and funny songs in the deal.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anything else about Hair? Something I kind of
like costumes. There were great costumes. It was the 60s, so there was very good fashion in the 60s, I thought.
Nice. Well, that is one you should all check out. Mimsy approves.
Mimsy approved.
Shall I go on with my first choice?
Yes, please do.
All right. I've talked about this soundtrack on numerous occasions. I think one reason I do love it is that it did kind of open my ears up to different music that I don't think I would have given a chance to if I had discovered it on my own, and that is the Pulp Fiction soundtrack.
Oh.
That film has its own vibe now. So, maybe younger folks don't necessarily get just how important that film was when it first came out, as well as the soundtrack. And the fact that Tarantino ended up picking a number of songs that, were popular at one point, but just for whatever reason, just
disappeared off the scene.
Disappeared for a long time too, and I even think of the Al Green song "Let's Stay Together." That was on there. I mean, that is an absolute classic. But 1994, Tim, never heard that before. I had been vaguely aware of Al Green. Me with fancy words. I had been vaguely aware of Al Green, with Put a Little Love in Your Heart, that duet he did with Annie Lennox for the Scrooged movie.
Oh, uh-huh.
But he was just some guy at that point.
Interesting.
I think back and it's like, MTV didn't have a responsibility to teach about music history, but I think they could have done a lot more to make you appreciate that, and not just, here's the new, it's like, that's one MTV's one big failing. They didn't really explain why something was good. They didn't dive deeper into music history. It was always the new, the now, the shiny, the this, the that, and I think that stunted my musical growth. But Pulp Fiction was one of the things that kind of got me on a path of exploration, and I really appreciate it. I mean, they have that Statler Brothers song, "Counting Flowers on the Wall."
Love that one.
Love that song. The Dick Dale Miserlou, classic and based on an old Arab song, the theme song to Pulp Fiction. Stuff like that. But what are your thoughts on Pulp Fiction?
Pulp Fiction was really great, and I agree, like a pivotal movie that was very influential on things that came later, especially Tarantino things. It kind of became his good formula.
Yeah, I mean, this was his breakout film. People were definitely aware of him with Reservoir Dogs, and they liked other things that he had involvement in, like True Romance. He wrote the script for that. Natural Born Killers, of course. Even though Tarantino does not like Oliver Stone's version of that movie. Because Tarantino wrote the script for Natural Born Killers, and it's not something I think you would enjoy at all.
Oh no, I've tried to watch it several times and I cannot watch it.
Yeah, it's a little dark.
Yeah, it's a little
just
dark.
a little dark, but yeah, I mean, and let's call it like it is too. I mean, this is the movie that really blew Samuel L. Jackson up as well. I mean, he'd been around in a number of things in supporting character roles. Like, he was the sarcastic computer tech from the first Jurassic Park movie. Mm-hmm. And he he was also in Eddie Murphy Raw. At the start of the movie, they have a little scene from when Eddie was a kid, and the kid who plays Eddie as a kid is the guy who played Buck from The Cosby Show.
Buck from The Cosby.
You remember, what's the youngest Huxtable girl's name? Rudy. It was the boy that Rudy was interested in, but he played young Eddie Murphy, and he did like a fart and a poop joke, pee joke or something like that, and just was getting all into it, and his family was looking at him like he was crazy, but the one person that was laughing was his uncle, played by Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh.
Yeah.
Fine.
But this also was probably John Travolta's last big thing, because, he had a number of hits after Pulp Fiction as well, but I think this would probably go down as the the peak of his career, and that's saying something.
I thought it was a comeback for him.
It was a comeback, but, he didn't do anything that was bigger than Pulp Fiction. It's just like he came back at really high, and then he had some great hits. I mean, come on, Face Off, great hit, great movie, and whatnot. But it was like he had the Pulp Fiction, and then for the rest of the 90s, going down till now he's doing those weird action movies to where older stars get paid like millions of dollars to show up for one day, and then they film their scenes, and then everybody else that is actually doing the nuts and bolts of making that movie gets paid a pittance and don't even necessarily get put on the cast list or anything like that. But that's a different story.
Oh wow. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Pulp Fiction, ladies and gentlemen, great soundtrack.
Pulp Fiction, great soundtrack.
All right, what's your next one?
Next one, another musical, Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh my goodness.
So it's the time of the season for Jesus Christ Superstar. It is early spring. So, Jesus Christ Superstar is all about the death and resurrection of Christ.
Because for such a topic like that, the first thing that comes to mind is musical.
Yeah, it's really great. It's from the 60s, and it's very 60s-ish. Certainly in the movie, the costumes are all very what people in the 60s would pretend Aramaic people would wear.
Jesus wouldn't wear bell bottoms.
Exactly. They wore bell bottoms and stuff. Mm-hmm. But the music is just incredible.
I have seen this movie before. The Grand Rapids Public Library one summer was, just playing, various movies in one of their conference rooms. And I like a good movie. Ended up seeing it. Wasn't my thing, but it does have a wrestling connection.
What is it?
There was a performer by the name of Superstar Billy Graham, who I know you're not aware of him, but he was the guy that ended up inspiring people like Hulk Hogan or Jesse Ventura in terms of the look as well as, performance on the mic and whatnot. And he would come to the ring with a Jesus Christ Superstar song.
Wow.
All the way down back when the WWE was a little more liberal in terms of using actual songs on their shows, because in the 80s, I guess, you didn't have to pay stuff like royalties or anything like that. But also, to be fair, they weren't thinking that, something that normally in the past had just been like a one and done type of deal would last forever thanks to it being on video or something like that.
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my connection to Jesus Christ Superstar. What? Go ahead.
I was just going to say that that's interesting.
What about that movie appeals to you?
The costumes are a big part of it. The set, they did go to Israel to film it. So it's all in Israel in like ruins, ancient ruins and stuff. So the sets are amazing. Because they're not sets. They're just...
They're there.
Yeah.
They're doing their thing.
Yeah.
All right.
And then at the beginning, they come in on a bus, and they have all of the stuff they need for the play. And one of those things is the cross that Jesus carries. So they've got that cross up on a school bus, and all these hippies come pouring out of the school bus, and they get the cross off the top of the bus, and they dance up the hill with the cross, and it's just so funny. And then at the end... And then then it comes on with a character. And then at the end, after everything happens, it comes on with the people gathering up all the stuff and getting back on the school bus and leaving.
Yeah, we just killed somebody. Yay, let's get on the bus. Let's go home now. The trip is over.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, all right.
What's your next one?
My next one, for me, I couldn't have a list like this without including at least one John Williams score. Just like I did last year with Tim's Tremendous Tapes, I did include I had an episode where I talked about soundtracks, and one of them was a John Williams score, which was not this one. On Tim's Tremendous Tapes, I included the Superman soundtrack. But for this, I wanted to include the soundtrack to the movie that inspired me to name my youngest, The Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. Just absolute classic John Williams. I mean, John Williams had a run there, and I don't think his run ever really stopped, as a musician. I mean, he had some legendary films that he scored, and the music is just so damn iconic. It feels... Even the 20th Century Fox logo at the start, played by the, London Symphony Orchestra, just sounds so majestic. Mm-hmm. And then as the film goes on, you have the Imperial March. What I love, though, is that music that plays at the end of the movie when Luke is getting his replacement cybernetic hand, and then, Lando and Chewie are going off to Tatooine to try to get Han back, and Leia and Luke look out the window, and that music that plays... just so beautiful. I mean, because you would see your hero get his arm cut off, another hero is frozen in carbonite. As far as the actual story that The Empire Strikes Back tells, the bad guys won.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't tell based on that music because it was a positive emotional ending.
Yeah.
And just that music, yeah.
Loved it. Mm-hmm. Love the music, particularly on Tatooine. the Tatooine music.
That was not in Empire Strikes Back.
They were not in Tatooine.
Yeah.
Well, shit.
Yeah, what do I know, right? They were on the ice world of Hoth.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the way I got my oldest into sci-fi was because of The Empire Strikes Back. And it was the Wampa ice creature scene at the start when Luke is, held upside down in the ice. And we're talking about the special edition version here, folks. The original didn't have what ultimately I used to get my son interested, but as soon as the Wampa would get closer and closer, it would jump up, and I would like grab my son and shake him just a little bit and go, "Oh my God, it's Aunt Colleen!" You know?
That's so mean.
Yeah, but that made him a sci-fi fan.
Did it?
Yeah, it did.
Well, I wonder what she thinks about that.
Well, I guess she's not talking to me or something like that, but that's a different story.
Yeah, maybe she doesn't appreciate this type of behavior.
Well, it was done. I kid.
It was done out of love.
I kid because I love.
Yeah.
The best folks in the world are prison folks. Anyway, how about you go on with your next choice? That was a Simpsons reference there, folks.
Okay, my next choice is Good Will Hunting. So this is the movie that Elliott Smith burst on the national scene after being a sort of unknown, except in the Pacific Northwest, singer-songwriter who basically did the entire score. It was a Gus Van Sant movie, of course, and who lived in Portland, and Elliott Smith lived in Portland. And so I loved Elliott Smith. I still do. Unfortunately, he is no longer alive. But I still enjoy his music and first discovered it in that movie.
I never bought the soundtrack myself. Saw the movie in theaters when it came out a number of times, actually.
Oh.
I really enjoyed that movie. And also, who didn't have a crush on Minnie Driver at that particular time?
Oh my gosh, Minnie Driver. I totally had a crush on Minnie Driver.
Yeah, just like when she was sad, you wanted to go up and like give her a hug and be like, "It's gonna be okay, Minnie Driver, come here."
Oh, poor Minnie Driver.
I know.
She always played tragic characters, it's true.
Yeah, but there was a rawness to the film that I like. Something that I don't think you would, see from Ben Affleck and Matt Damon today. That rawness, I think, contributes to how good it is. Just the character work. Like initially, believe it or not, in the first draft, while Will was supposed to see the therapist, in the movie as it is in the actual movie, there was also a subplot to where he was trying to, work against the government or something like that. Like he was.
Oh, it was more like espionage-y kind of thing?
Yeah, until Rob Reiner, of all people, because they initially brought it to Castle Rock. That was a production company that he owned at the time, and said, you kind of got two movies here, and I'm kind of digging the one with the therapist. Why don't you more focus on that? And thankfully they listened to that bit of advice, because I guess more than anything, I relate to Will a lot, being that, that type of character that can fit just as easy with like the rough and tumble street guys on the one hand, and is also able to be in a different world as well of, higher learning and all that stuff. I really like that.
Yeah, those are some of the things I loved about that movie too.
Mm-hmm. And then of course Robin Williams, one of his best performances.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
And his the last line of the film, like, "Damn kid stole my line," improvised.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, he was so good.
Yeah. Not much more to say.
Yeah. No.
So shall I go on with my next one?
Yes, please.
All right, this soundtrack is actually the first bit of music I ever purchased.
Really?
Yes. Soundtrack for an Oliver Stone movie called The Doors.
Hey.
Yeah, it is essentially a greatest hits album, and there's nothing wrong with that. It has the big hits on there, The End, Light My Fire, Break On Through, but it also has some other tracks that were released after his death because, I mean, it was a shock to everybody, of course, but what they ended up doing, Jim Morrison had actually recorded some poetry, some of his poetry before he passed away, and the band, the remaining members of the band ended up putting music to it, and I loved that balance of, you know, the big iconic Doors hits along with the weird stuff, because I think that definitely was a great showcase of Morrison as a musician, as an artist. But I also love the fact that they had the Velvet Underground song "Heroin" on there. Introduced me, you know, introduced me more to Lou Reed than I was aware of at that particular time. And then the "O Fortuna" classical music song, and I'm not asking you to recall it yourself right now, but it's one of those songs that if you heard it, you would go, "Oh yeah, that."
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So iconic in a lot of ways, and again, I think this soundtrack too was the thing that kind of. This got me interested in the band.
Me too. I mean, that was my first experience with the Doors, and it was good.
Yeah, I mean, I remember my mother at the time was like, you know, I think she had a crush on Jim Morrison or something like that. You know, it's just the way she talked about the band. I vividly remember her descriptions, and just, you know, the little smile she would give, and just like looking up and all that stuff. She had a crush.
Yeah, totally. That's so cute. Did you ever see that in any other context?
What? Her talking like that?
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really.
Love it.
Yeah.
Was it her favorite band?
I don't think so. But also, too, I think in some ways she was a lot like me in terms of not having, like, one favorite.
Sure.
You know, and like, who does at the end of the day, I guess. But because like, when I discovered, like, Jimi Hendrix, for instance, you know, she ended up, you know, surprising me by liking Jimi Hendrix. I mean, because all I knew at that particular time was that she was interested in, you know, like the pop country stuff from the early 80s. Like, ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Rabbit. You know?
I love a rainy night.
Not a bad song, but you get my point. It's not Jimi Hendrix with Purple Haze.
No.
Which reminds me of that Bill Hicks bit when he talked about how bad Debbie Gibson was as a performer compared to Jimi Hendrix, and he just said, well, what would the Jimi Hendrix and Debbie Gibson album be like? You know, and the way he did it was like, Foxy, and then he imitated Debbie going, Mommy, get me out of here, Mom. Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Any thoughts on the Doors yourself?
Well, no, just I said that I liked them and I liked that movie. It introduced me to the Doors for sure.
All right. What is your next choice?
My next choice is a movie soundtrack called White Nights. White Nights. Now, do you or anyone else in the world remember this movie?
I'm aware of it, and I'm the one who reminded you of the title.
Yeah, but like,
but
did you have it in your head before I said, "Hey, what was that movie Baryshnikov was in"?
No, it's just one of those weird little trivia facts that
yeah.
I know. Yeah, like there was never a moment in time, and there never will be a moment in time where I'm sitting here with a remote in my hand, and I will go, Gregory Hines and Mikhail Baryshnikov? That's for me.
Right, but you were at least aware of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the soundtrack is so good. It has lots of just weird 80s pop that I enjoy, and I just loved that movie so much. And now when I think about it, it just makes me cry because it was such a like sad movie.
It is kind of sad that Hollywood today, at least when it comes to movies, they're a little more daring on TV, but movies, they don't take gambles like that anymore. Everything has to be by formula, and that's not how movies worked. It worked in the past. You have to take a risk on something that will challenge people, on something that, you know, will just speak to people's souls. And, you know, yeah, sometimes the results in the 70s and 80s didn't work, but at least it's just different.
Oh, yeah. And that movie was very different. And it's sort of, I put it in the same category as that movie, Against All Odds. Do you remember that one?
The Sylvester Stallone arm wrestling movie?
No.
Oh, that was over the top.
No, this is Against All Odds. And it was like about cocaine smuggling or something. But that's not why I liked it. I just liked it for the music. Because I think my sister liked the movie, and so she got the soundtrack, and so I would hear the soundtrack. And so it's one of the few soundtracks I liked, not having seen, or not having, I saw the movie, but I did not like it.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't watch it all the way through.
Yeah, for me, like, it's like Gregory Hines and Mikhail Baryshnikov are cops, and they dance.
Yeah.
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 What is there a song that comes to mind from that soundtrack that...
There's a Phil Collins song. It's a duet. I can't remember who it was a duet with, but it was like, you called me from the room in your hotel. Do you remember that one?
Separate Lives.
Separate Lives, yeah. We have no right to ask me how I feel.
Interesting. They had Robert Plant did a song on that album.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah.
What was the name of that song?
Far Post.
Huh.
Yeah, this was slightly after Led Zeppelin broke up. Led Zeppelin ended up disbanding in 1980, I believe, when John Bonham passed away from his alcohol usage.
Yeah.
So, anyway, any other thoughts?
Nope. What's your next one?
All right, my next one. When I saw this movie in 2011, thanks to piracy, it was like meeting up with an old friend that you hadn't seen in 30 years and resuming the friendship instantly. It was the 2011 Muppets movie.
Oh.
Yeah, with Jason Segel.
Yeah.
Now, to be 100% clear, I don't think that film was ever aiming to be the greatest Muppet movie ever made. What it was a love letter to the Muppet Show TV show.
Yeah.
And if you go into that movie in that context, you're going to have a lot of fun. But the soundtrack was written by one of the people from the Flight of the Conchords comedy group. But it hooked me from the beginning with the Life's a Happy Song. Like a very positive, upbeat song, which for people that know me, they'll be like, why that song, Tim? But it just works. But the reason I think it works is, and why it fits in the Muppets universe is that, kind of like Jim Henson, he would always have that positive, chirpy, happy stuff with a little bit of sarcasm thrown in. And, that's I just everything about that movie from first shot to last is great. But the music, Amy Adams singing Me Party.
Yeah, it's a me party. Yes, I love it.
Yeah, with Miss Piggy. But then there's the classic, Am I a Man or Am I a Muppet? Mm-hmm. They even revisit some classic tunes in the Muppets repertoire, like Rainbow Connection. Nothing beats Henson's original delivery on that, of course, but, it's one of those, like, I remember that 70s. Yeah, but, again, what I really loved about it was just, it felt like, again, meeting up with old friends and just picking up, where you left off, and that was such a great feeling.
That's so sweet. I mean, I really see what you're saying there. I like that. I like that way of saying it.
Any thoughts on the Muppets movie yourself?
Oh, I loved it. I was so happy that I liked it because I was very nervous about going into it because it was the first movie since Jim had died.
No.
What was the first movie?
Because they had a few films after Henson died. Like, the Muppets Christmas Carol was after he died.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I knew it at the time.
Probably, yeah. But
I didn't remember.
but to be clear, though, with the Muppet Christmas Carol, just because Jim Henson wasn't there, doesn't mean like everybody else that was involved in the original Muppet team, like Frank Oz,
Oh, sure.
or Jerry Jewell, weren't involved. They were involved in that as well. But this was the first movie that was really the first big screen movie that really let the new team that runs the Muppets do their thing. For the most part, even though I guess after that movie they ended up firing the guy who did the voice of Kermit.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, which it took me years for that person who did the voice of Kermit after Jim Henson to grow on me, because I remember when Henson passed away, they had a 1 hour special. 1 hour TV special on CBS, and it was a celebration of the life of Henson, but they played it as if it was an episode of the Muppet Show as well. Oh, and like Kermit didn't show up until the very end of that show, because they were debuting the new voice at that particular time. But once Kermit came on and spoke, he might as well have been voiced by Barry White. It's like, that's not Kermit. How dare you? But overall, you got to watch that movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I love that movie.
All right, what is your last choice?
Okay, my last choice is Game of Thrones. So now this is more of a score, although they did have some songs. Sigur Rós had a song on the soundtrack. Ed Sheeran.
Oh my God, him?
Yeah.
Never heard of him. Anyway.
He's like a famous, like extra famous guy from England or something.
I know him by sight. Just, one of those pasty white guys.
Yeah, pasty white guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's on it. But the score is really the thing that is so good. And I will listen to certain songs that are completely orchestral from that soundtrack because it's so good.
Yeah, I'm not really a fantasy person myself, so I've not even dipped a toe into the Game of Thrones world.
Yeah, you would hate it.
Yeah, I mean, people with some of my other interests, people are always shocked by that. Why don't you like fantasy? Like, people ask about like, what do you think of the Lord of the Rings? I hated those movies. Hated them.
Did you see them?
Oh, of course.
But you hated them.
Yeah. The reason, why did you go, Tim, if you hated them? Because Peter Jackson is a great filmmaker. I don't have to like his movie to appreciate the fact that a lot of great work went into it. And also, too, I think, when they first came out, I just didn't like the fact that now Elijah Wood was being treated like a Tolkien scholar.
Right.
It's like that little punk kid from the Huck and Tom movie from Disney is now teaching me about J.R.R. Tolkien. Screw that, man.
That's so funny that you felt in competition with that little kid.
Yeah. Punk kid. Anyway.
That punk kid.
Yeah.
Get off my lawn.
Exactly.
What about your last one?
All right, my last one. We've done an episode about this particular movie before.
What is it?
The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, that's a good one.
I love this movie. I love this soundtrack. It's not something I would normally enjoy, but in the world that's created in that film, everything just works. Mm-hmm. And great music. Like Over the Rainbow, of course, an absolute classic, a song that was almost taken out of the film.
Wow.
Because the tone of that song didn't necessarily fit with the rest of the tone that the movie was trying to set, but it still works because, Dorothy is longing for something more than, what little black and white Kansas can offer her.
Yeah.
And, that soulful, slow, over the rainbow type of delivery that she gives is just great. But, the if I had a brain, if I had courage, type of just wonderful songs from first to last, and hopefully one day we get a good proper I want to see an actual live action Wizard of Oz movie, not a prequel,
not a sequel,
Wizard of Oz again.
It's the same movie.
Not the same.
A reimagining.
Well, more along the lines of the book. Just, they're great books. Because I fell in love with the series when that Return to Oz movie first hit. And my grandma had a whole collection of the L. Frank Baum books. And I spent a summer reading them.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
I never read them. I read Little House on the Prairie.
Ah.
I read the shit out of Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're like, Michael Landon would never do that.
The books were so much better than the TV show.
Yeah. The TV back in the day, folks, when it was just bad in a lot of ways because they made shows that tried to appeal to everybody, and when you do that, you're not going to please anybody.
Yeah, you got to really, make your... And we have that now. We have such a diversity of potential entertainment at every possible moment.
It's just now compared to, when that show first came out, and now you have corporations that are creating this entertainment for just very specific groups in mind. Mm-hmm. Unlike back in the day to where, like I said, because, on TV, you only had 3 channels. When Little House on the Prairie was out, Fox was not around yet. There was only so many TV shows that could be there, and you had to appeal to a much larger audience, which made TV entertainment boring sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mother would hate me for that because she had such a crush on Michael Landon.
Oh my goodness.
She used to watch Bonanza all the time.
Whoa.
Yeah. Little Joe, she had a thing for him.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, this episode has now just evolved into celebrities my mom had a crush on.
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
All right. Those are some great soundtracks, folks, whether it's from my list or the professor's list here. We encourage you to check out, even if it's just playing in the background of wherever you're at, or just listening to one particular song. Dive into a soundtrack album.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're like sort of like concept albums in that they're all hanging around a certain story. And even when they don't have to do with the story, somebody curated that set of songs to create a mood or to create moods from this one particular movie.
Exactly. And when you get the right bunch of songs together, even if they're all from wildly different genres, if it can still end up working in amazing ways. I mean, I go back to my first choice, Pulp Fiction. They have a variety of songs, even though they're from the same era-ish, it's still different types of genres, kind of mixed together, but still works. I mean, who would have thought Al Green and the Statler brothers would share an album,
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. So check it out. Any other last thoughts as we wrap up this recording again?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, for the most electrifying professor in podcasting today, each Monday we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
So long, folks.
I see what you did there. Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
on YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Goodbye, darling.